Hi, my name is Nikki Haverstock, and I am a self-published author of 14 cozy mysteries that are contemporary, paranormal, or space opera. This is the author 2 portion of my YouTube channel, and remember to like and subscribe if you would like more content like this. I am going to talk today about why it might be that when you listen to someone's professional writing advice, you are finding a disconnect between what they are saying and what is working for you. And this is not meant to rail on successful authors, whatever successful means. I'm not judging that it's always monetary. It could just be they have a large fandom, they connect, their work is amazing, whatever it is. When those authors share what works for them and you find that it's not working for you, and I'm not saying that they're wrong, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'm trying to offer a few options for why that disconnect between their advice and your experience exists, and hopefully help you while still crediting them. Sorry, 2 big old ducks just flew overhead. I have a window right here. So the first off, right off the bat, probably the easiest and the one that you can guess is that they're just different authors than you. They just work differently. And we know that. We discussed it quite a bit. Are you a plotter or a pantser? I actually think that particular divide is one of the smaller ones that exist within our community. While it's the most talked about, it might not matter as much as some other things. But for that example, I will say that if you've read Stephen King's book on writing, and I believe the example I'm using was in that book, it might be from one of his speeches that I've seen on YouTube, so I apologize if this is not familiar to you and you've read the book, which is he made kind of this flippant remark about if you know where your book is going, then your reader will know where the book's going and it won't be good. Okay, that is advice that directly reflects how he works, and not every author works like that. A lot of great movies and books and TV shows and stuff are pre-plotted and do surprise the reader, but that is a reflection of him and how he works best. Now, it's fine if you listen to that advice and you go, wow, that is so amazing. That totally summarizes exactly how I need to work. And it's also okay if you listen to that advice and you go, I could never write a book that way. It would be such a hot mess. That's fine. So, and when I say that that is one divide, I have 2 friends I'll use as an example. One is Zoe York, who has a channel here on YouTube that I recommend you go watch. And another is my friend Zara Keene, who is an amazing cozy mystery writer, and one is a plotter, one is a pantser, one writes in order, one writes out of order. One is a high compliance writer, which means that it's very important to her that every detail is correct, and the other one tends to be more of like a don't let data and facts get in the way of emotions and feelings. And they're both amazing writers, and they work totally different, but they both do the same thing, which is they write the first third and send it to their editor and get the first third edited, because for them to get that first third right, they need it to move on. I'm not going to say weird, because that implies that there's something wrong with their process, but to me it was like such a moment where I realized, wow, there is so much more than just plotting versus pantsing. A research writer versus someone who is more story and emotion focused. There's so many, and we could probably sit here and brainstorm for hours and find hundreds of ways that writers tend to be somewhere along a spectrum from here to here. That makes sense. So a lot of times when you hear an author give advice on how to work and it does not work for you, a big possibility is that you just need to listen to more authors and find out what works for you. And I'm focusing on authors who give their advice, who either something like this, a YouTube channel where someone like me just says, here's what works for me, I hope it helps you. Whether it's interviews, you go on YouTube, you can see famous authors all over that come in and give speeches at colleges, offer workshop critique. I'm mostly focusing on working authors because this specific thing is about people coming from their point of view and sharing, not a teacher, not a guru, not like that. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about authors, okay? So the first one was they're just a different author than you. A second possibility is that you don't have the skills necessary yet to do what they're talking about. And there's no shame in that. We are all learning. Every day I am learning something new. Every book I am working on something new. Every every time I go back, because I do my own audiobooks, every time I go back and read an old book, I see things a skill that I used to lack. And I think true artisan, I like the word artisan because to me, it's not, my work is not high art, but it's also not churning craft. It's artisan. It is quality, handcrafted products that are meant to, that are familiar. That's what my cozy mysteries are. They're mysteries. You recognize them as mysteries, but they're artisan because my little part of my heart goes. So anyway, you talk to anyone who does that and you'll hear the world's most renowned musician in a certain area who's saying, I'm still getting better every day. So sometimes it's just as simple as you learn a lesson and you get something from it, and then next time you learn a lesson and you get something more from it, and then you learn it again and you get a new layer. And that is really common, and that might be why you hear someone's advice and it doesn't immediately make sense. And then you learn it again and again and again. For me, this was cover art. So I knew from the day I started, I had great advice that says you want to have it be genre. You want people to be able to look at it and say, that is a cozy mystery. And you don't want to be different, you want to be better. So you do the same thing, but better. And I think my covers, and you're welcome to go to Amazon and look them in chronological order, have gotten better. Now that is not something that I didn't know to where I know now. It is that I was able to train my eye over time and I was to get better. So sometimes when someone gives you a skill, especially ideas that are nebulous and dependent upon your brand, because no one else can tell you your brand, you have to know your brand. So when people first ask you, what's your brand? And you're like, well, I don't get it. I don't get what they're saying. Or they say, oh, your newsletter is simple. Just share something personal. And you're like, I don't know what people want to know. It's not that the lesson's wrong. It's that you're just not quite ready to get there yet. And there's no shame in that. And I have people who tell me plotting stuff and marketing stuff all the time. And I'm somewhat good at it. I'm not going to say I'm the best, but I'm going to say that I've had pretty good success. I have positive ROI, return on investment, on the marketing that I do. Most of my books have earned out. There's one who hasn't. But, and so I would say that I know that I'm ahead of a lot of self-published authors and even traditional authors in that I'm making a profit. Doesn't mean that I still get everything. And I've gotten a lot better at just saying, yeah, I don't get that. Okay, so that's 2. 3, and I think this one is really common, is that the industry has changed in ways that they don't understand or they've forgotten. And I think this is really common. This is a reason why whenever people tell you, this is how you start out, this is how you do it, this is how you do it, I go and I look at when they were published. Because if someone is saying, this is how you do it, this is how you get an editor, or this is how you self-publish, and they self-published in 2011, which is when KDP and ebooks really started, the industry has changed radically, okay? It's the same thing about like maybe your grandfather or something goes, well, when I was in college, I went to the best college in my state and I just worked a part-time job and paid for it off. And we're like, okay, well, have you looked at prices recently versus, we only had one car and I bought my house my first year, and you just go, the world has changed. And this is not a criticism. I'm not trying to slam older people because I am getting there. But the idea is that the industry has changed. Things have gotten harder. Things have been different. A lot of people will say, well, when I started, I never had a newsletter. And that is not to say that that advice is useless, because most of the ideas, the kernel that's there still works. But sometimes you can hear people say, well, I didn't do this or that or whatever. And it's good to look at that through the lens of when they started and what the industry was like. So I watch a lot of master classes. I have a video on my review of master classes, and they have amazing authors of all kinds, but most of them have been in the industry for 20, 30 years. And so a lot of the details about what the industry looks like to them is very different than what it looks like now. Even 5 years ago, it's been changing rapidly. It'll always be changing. But that's a good reminder for me too, that some of my advice might be getting dated by the fact that I have now started, I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary, and things were a little different. The genre that I primarily write in was not really a genre. It was, people were writing in it, but it wasn't, it didn't have a large group of readers until recently. And so, you know, I was very lucky in that. So that's the third reason. And then the fourth reason, they just don't know. They don't know what they did. They think they know what they did. You've probably heard the phrase that a lot of times people mistake luck for talent, and a lot of times it is luck. And that is not to say that they don't deserve it, but in this case, I'm using luck as things outside of their control. They didn't plan it. They didn't work on it. A good example, I know several authors who did this, who decided they were going to start writing, and they started writing, and they immediately took off. And if you ask them, very nice people, very talented people, and if you ask them what happened, they will tell you all the things about the advertising they did, the newsletter they did, the critique partners they worked with, the artists they hired, and all of those things are correct. What they will probably not mention as much is that their best friend, their mother, their sister, their cousin, their employer, a lot of these, you know, I've known people who were author agents, and then became author assistants or personal assistants to authors. They worked for a literary agency. They were editors. Some professional or personal relationship that they had with a highly successful author who instantly was like, this author is amazing, and they were able to get a huge leg up. You don't see that. And that is beyond their control, because I can't decide that my sister's going to be a world famous cozy mystery author who is going to promote my books heavily to her audience and give me a 10,000 person fandom right from the beginning. And I don't resent those people, but it is, and I do think that long term that all evens out. If they don't have the goods to back it up, it will not last. And I think that if you do have the goods to back it up, it might take you longer to get to that position, but you will find your fans. And like they always say, preparation and hard work leads to good luck, or however the phrase goes, or the harder I work, the luckier I get. The more backlist you have, when you get that kind of viral hit of a book, or you hit the right trend or whatever, you have more of a backlist. And so I'm not trying to discourage you, but what I am saying is that a lot of people got lucky early on, luck being something outside of their control, and they don't know it. They just don't know it. They can't know it. Or they don't know. We don't know why did the pet rock take off the way it did in the 70s, if you don't know what that is. But you know, sometimes things that no one really understands, and you can read Malcolm Gladwell talk about it. You can talk about the Power of Habits, which talks about like why toothpaste suddenly became a big thing. You can say that it's all marketing. It could be just the perfect combination of a bunch of other things. Why Timberland boots suddenly became popular again, why flannels were popular in the 90s, maybe it's because of Nirvana, but if you're a flannel company, you certainly didn't plan on that. Anyway, my point is that some people just don't know, and that's the truth, and they can share and they can tell you what they did, but we just don't know. And I have books that I go, I don't understand why that one book is doing so well, and why this one isn't, and authors will tell you that here's the series that I planned within an inch of its life and it didn't take off, and then this thing I did flippantly, and we can get into all that. But I hope that helps you to hear authors' advice, and my goal is that you can then go through when something's not working and maybe find the nugget in there that does help you, that helps you build your career. And I'm just going to say it, always say thank you. I see it all the time. I'm in groups with very successful authors who share their opinion and don't even get a thank you. Someone messages them and says, how do I do this? And they take the time to answer, and no one says thank you. You don't need to say thank you to me. You can like my video, but always just say thank you. When people give me advice, I thank them honestly for their time, because I appreciate that, and their energy. And so that is something you can always do no matter who, because I've seen a lot of authors who stop giving advice because every time they say something, people go, no, that's not it, or you don't know, or this isn't that. And it really wears you down, and then you wonder why why it's hard to find top authors who are giving back, is because it gets exhausting to argue with everyone. You tell them what you did, and then they want to argue with you. So always go, if people do take the time, even if it's not for you, even if this is like, even if it's the worst advice you've ever heard and you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot possibly do that, you can thank them sincerely for their time. So anyway, I hope that helps you and you have a wonderful week. Bye.